PLP, all the way. PLP. No way. Now, the first thing that I want to do, and well, adding my words of welcome to Mrs. Moxley, is to apologize to those listening on the outside, because for some reason it's a problem. There's been a problem with the internet all day, and they say it's been dropping in and out. So the pictures were a bit fuzzy and things were breaking up. So I apologize for that. And secondly, I want to welcome all our colleagues. You just saw them stand here, but we also have the chairs of the men's branch and of the women's branch. And we have two vice chairs here. I'm going to ask them to stand. The deputy chair and the two vice chairs who are sitting at the table here. If you can just stand, we recognize them. And it's wonderful to see all the people who are seated here tonight. I must have heard something was going on. But I want to thank, in particular, Mrs. Moxley tonight, because she gave us a tour de force of Grand Bahama. And I keep saying to people that Grand Bahama is very much the future of this country.
Oh, yeah.
You've got a city that was built for 250,000 people. And the island itself now has only 47,000 people. We lost about 10,000 of the population since the pandemic and the storms. And so we have to make sure that people are on the island. And she gave a statistic. One day you were speaking that was at the headquarters in Grand Bahama. And you said that in the year 2027, you expect for 6 million tourists to visit Grand Bahama.
Yes.
There is no way in 2027, given the present population, that we're going to be able to service 6 million tourists, unless some people decide to move to Grand Bahama. And I say to people that if you want to buy land now, it's cheap. If you want to buy buildings that are cheap, go to Freeport. There are a lot of opportunities to buy land at reasonable prices. So get while the get is good. It's a wonderful place to be, and a lot of wide open spaces, a lot of peace and calm. What it takes you an hour and a half to do it now, so you can do it 20 minutes in Grand Bahama. And it's got all the amenities you could want. And you heard her lay out a dynamic program of action for what the Progressive Liberal Party is going to do for Grand Bahama. And not the Grand Bahama Port Authority. I repeat, not the Grand Bahama Port Authority. They have been living a falsehood for too long. The city has been carried by the Bahamas government for a long time. And what is always interesting is when you talk to some people about what we're trying to do to bring things back on board, they keep saying, we don't want Grand Bahama to end up like Nassau. Really? A city with 300,000 people, a dynamic economy where almost everybody is working, and money is flowing, and you have a rich cultural life. You got plenty places to go. You got a big fish fry. You can have a great time on a Friday night. You don't want that? I mean, give me a break. I didn't know how dynamic people thought this. I met a young waiter. We were sitting at dinner in Freeport. Someone, is that the Lord calling you? Where is that coming from? So I'm sitting at dinner. I'm sitting at dinner, and in Grand Bahama. And this waiter starts talking, and he's saying how he loves Nassau. And Nassau is such a great city, and how the women are so beautiful, and they come there, have such a good time, and all these things to do. And I was asking, Nassau? What are you talking about, Nassau? But that's Nassau. And it's a dynamic place. And that's what we have to do to Freeport and Grand Bahama. I have a problem with some of our people who work with me. They don't want to go there with me. They say, nothing to do. I tell them, let me tell you this. A place is as dynamic as the people you have around you. Nothing to do with the place. So thank you, Mrs. Moxley, for holding up the flag of the progressive party in Grand Bahama. And make sure that I'm invited the moment you open that road up. Restore that road to what it was. I think it was Ingram who gave them permission. Yeah, to pull into this false beach. They said and then they closed off the road to say to build an artificial beach. But she's promised that we're going to restore that road, and not a moment too soon. So thank you. And then there's the power company. So the power company and the Grand Bahama Port Authority are in what you call an incestuous relationship. You heard Mr. Moxley describe it. So they take advantage of the profits of the power company, but they also get to say whether the power company can increase its rates, or so they say. Well, we know that's a familiar story because, you know, when gambling came to Grand Bahama back in the old days, I used to say to my mother, what was it like in olden days? And she used to say, you have to ask somebody else because I wasn't around. But to so many of the young people who were in olden days, when Southern Sands, who's still on our $10 bill, was the Minister of Finance and the Minister responsible for gaming, he was also the lawyer for the gambling company, which was Grand Bahama Amusements, which was owned by the Grand Bahama Port Authority. And he was the lawyer who applied to the Minister of Gaming, who was himself, whether to grant a license for gambling in Grand Bahama. What do you think he said? Yes. And then he fixed up all the fellas in the cabinet. He gave them each $10,000 consultancy fees of $10,000, a lot of money in those days. Yeah. Gave them a lot of money, $10,000. And surprise, surprise, they got a gambling license. You know, he took off his hat as a lawyer, and sat as minister of the government, put on that hat, and grant you a license. So we're used to that kind of action. So that's the point we're making. You can't have your cake and eat it too. The regulator is IRCA. That's responsible for granting the rate increases. And right now in Grand Bahama, they're having power blackouts 2 hours at a time, twice a day. That's what they're doing. They promised a month ago they were going to fix this problem, but they haven't fixed the problem. It's still happening. So we have power cuts in Nassau, like that. Yeah, before she came here tonight, she called him on the phone and said, I love you. Don't mess around tonight. But guess what? We got generated. Yeah, and we got solar panels on the roof. So now there's a hurricane coming, and they say that the way it looks is, I was speaking to the ministers responsible for the Met Office. It looks as if it's going to go over Central Florida, coming over the West Coast, but some parts of it may affect Albuquerque and Grand Bahama in particular. And you know, it's promised it's going to be a rain all this week for most of the time. But people should be cautious. But I was saying to the minister, you know, some parents have been saying that they haven't heard whether or not they should evacuate, and they're waiting to hear what to do. So I was saying to her, now, it was my children, you know, I was going to wait on nobody to tell me whether to evacuate or not. I'd have them on the next flight home if I had any fear at all that there was going to be a problem. So the serious point is, you don't have to wait on the government to tell you whether or not to evacuate. I mean, we all see the news, and we know that hurricanes are unpredictable. So if you have an issue or concern about the safety of your family members or children, put them on the plane. Now is the time to act, because Bahamas Air can't predict when in the week it's going to start flying into Florida, because at a certain point it has to do it for its own protection. So I'm saying to parents, please, 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 if you have a concern or fear about your children or family members, put them on the plane and bring them back home to Nassau or Freeport. That's the wisest thing to do. Err on the side of caution. I think that's the proper thing to do. I want to also welcome, well, first I want to thank Quinton Wypen for the service which he gave to King and Country as a senator. And he's now gotten a big job in Washington, D.C. I hope he comes to the big house, so I can send some friends up there to spend the weekend in D.C. And I hope that there's a future for him in the House of Assembly. And I want to welcome the new senator, Jan Major, who is a partner at Hicks & Johnson and is a woman. And so we have another notch in our belt to show that this is the party that supports women and the advancement. And I'm sure she's going to be a good and dynamic addition to the team. So welcome, Ms. Major. Now, I was talking about hurricanes, and I want to say this. Japan is an island nation which has earthquakes. And they've had earthquakes from time immemorial. And every time the earthquakes break the buildings down, they build them back up. And their engineers have now come up with a system that all the buildings have springs. So whenever the earthquake comes, the building sways like this, and nothing happens to the building. I was in Hong Kong, maybe about 10 years ago, when a hurricane, they call them typhoons, hit Hong Kong, direct hit. They strapped the place down, next morning they were back up again. All has to do with engineering. So if your housing stock is properly built, if your buildings are properly built, you can withstand the weather. And that's the issue which we have to face as a country. Our codes have been changed since Dorian took place 5 years ago. And houses now have to be built to withstand 200-mile-an-hour winds. So it's more expensive to do, but that's the ultimate solution to try and get this solved. At the same time, you have the Prime Minister who is leading the fight on climate change, because a lot of this is going to cost money. If you read the Inter-American Development Bank's report, they've said that 50% of our now national debt has to do with extreme weather events. And the problem we have is that it requires going to the market to fix these problems. Because the GDP per capita of our country is $35,000 per person, you cannot get concessionary loans from the international lending agencies. So if, for example, you're Haiti, where the GDP per capita is something like $200, $300 per person. When they run into a problem, they can go to World Bank and you get a loan at 2%, 3%. We're paying now in the market 9%. And the other day I was talking to some Jamaican financiers and they're saying that they can lend us less than 13%. So it's expensive to borrow money. And nobody's going to give you cheap money. So what's happening now is the country is trying to protect its position by seeking to fund the government off cash flow to avoid having to borrow to do so. Because you have to have the credit space. One hurricane can come along, knock everything out, and then you have to go to the market. Nobody helps you. So that's the cautionary tale that we're in. And so it's like your mother who would count the pennies and say, I can only do this much this week, I can do this much next week. That's what we do. And it's taking a little bit of patience for us to wade our way through this. But in the end, it's a strategy which we think will protect the country's credit worthiness. And you can see now that it's worked because we got our credit rating sustained at B+, and they also said that the outlook is stable in the short to medium term. Where the difficulty comes is the longer term. They disagree with us. They say in the longer term, there are problems coming. And Michael Alkidas said, I disagree with that. Let me tell you this. This country sits next to the most dynamic economy in the world. We're 50 miles away from it. And so long as that economy is doing well, the Bahamas is going to do well, believe me. And there is nothing in the foreseeable future that says that the U.S. economy is going to be in the decline. So the Bahamas, I believe, is going to do well. And it has to do with managing the economy. And there are lots of things. I was surprised when I was in New York last week, or week before last. They were telling us about the reserves of seagrass we have and what the value is of that. Tonight, just before I came here, I met with some corporate representatives who were telling me that as a result of the 15% corporate tax that all countries have signed on to across the world, that we could net easily next year $300 million from people paying those taxes here instead of paying in their home countries. So there's a lot of positive news on the scene. And that's why we have such an investment in the international community. Because what we're trying to do is to raise the profile of our country. We're even running for a seat on the Security Council so that the profile of our country can be raised. And, you know, relationships count. And when people know you, they know your name, they present you with opportunities to invest. And what we've learned from the Middle East countries is that the strategy must always be growth, 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 growth. Never cut back. Never cut back. Because your grandchildren will be able to pay for it, don't worry. And if you wait, you know, like if we had waited this year to build this facility, how much do you think this was going to cost? Probably 10 times what it was when we actually built it. And it took George Mackey. George Mackey first talked about this building, in 1989. If you come to my office in Fox Hill, there's a big poster done by Eddie Minnis on the wall. In 1989, he announced he wanted to build a Fox Hill Community Center. And we actually got it built in 2017. So it takes a long time to get these things done. So, once again, to go to Mrs. Moxley to say thank you, and thank you to all my colleagues. Because, as she ended by saying, we want to win in 2026. The country got no favors by 5 years here, 5 years there, 5 years here, 5 years there. Dwayne Sands was in the newspaper this morning talking about Wayne should resign. Wayne didn't break no COVID rules. Right. Wayne didn't interfere in no court case. So the first thing you need to say is what? Physician, heal yourself. You know? He's a good mender of hearts, but doesn't know A from a bullfrost or politics. So he needs to go sit down. Simple as that. Because last week in the House of Assembly, the FNF agreed with us that crime was not a political issue. And now this week, they got Dwayne Sands saying the man should resign. Resign for what? So, out of ideas, you know, every week somebody must resign and somebody must go and all the rest of it. So, let Dwayne Sands know what they said tonight, please. You promise? Yes. So, thank you all. I want to remember in passing Jenny Mae Neely, who is from Blueberry Hill Road. She was 90 years old at the time of the passing. She was the last remaining aunt of Fred Stark, who used to be work with the Nassau Guardian, the last of that generation of people. And she was buried at Holy Family Church on Saturday. And so may she rest in peace. She was a stalwart member of our community. And the last time the Prime Minister did his walk through, he stopped at her house. And I was a little frightened because she said, "Boy, I haven't seen you in a long time." I said, "Well, look what this lady said in front of my boss." So I had to rush to get a couple of coupons and put it in the hat. Thank you. And then there was a lady from, see Mrs. Cocktail? I understand that she's in the belly of the PLP. And someone took it out for that. But there's a lady who's calling Rodney Monker's show, saying that she hadn't seen me, no one's seen me in the area. So anyway, we eventually tracked down who this lady was, found her, and she confessed on Rodney's show, no, what she said wasn't true. No, she didn't have any issue. I actually went and saw her on the weekend. I didn't say nothing to her, but you know. Once she cleared it up on the radio, that's you know, getting these nominations from the PLP is tough, you know. I had to, the committee, the executive committee went before the party the other day, and they called me up and they said, "Boy, I wish you luck, because if you heard what we had to say about you, I didn't know how you could make it." Anyway, and then I had to go before them myself. So that's the process we're going through for everybody. Everybody has to have an assessment. There's going to be a conclave for us. I think I can publicly announce that too. 1st and 2nd of November, so all the members of Parliament will be going to Bimini in all places. I hope they actually pay attention to the meeting. So, when you lay low in Bimini, some big things can happen. So we'll be in Bimini for the 1st and 2nd of November for the conclave. And then the parties decided the modules that were done before are going to be repeated in January of next year, probably over 3 days. Which is 16th, 17th. The 16th and 17th of January. So people who are interested in public service, plus the members of Parliament and senators, will all be asked to go through this program again, because we're all preparing for the next general election. And it's a real hat trick being a public figure. It's not an easy thing to be. I mean, you know, people are peppering you with all sorts of questions, and you have to have instant answers, and you have to have instant patience. But that's the job. And also your affairs have to be so ordered because everything is under a microscope. So we're going to try and teach people the hat trick or the art of trying to do that, or run people through that process again. So thank you very much. This is the house that George Mackey dreamed of and is now built. And please enjoy the night. I had the branch executives scrambling because this morning I said there was going to be plenty of ice cream again. And they didn't want any ice cream. Phil got the ice cream. I know the children. And I had the most extraordinary event this morning. The children of L.W. Young asked me to come to the school. And I really had to get a handkerchief for that. It was really quite moving. A little girl actually wrote a song for me. And if you go online, you can see it on Fred Mitchell, Minute by Minute, you can see it. And she sang it as well. It was really an extraordinary thing. And I told them that all things being equal, I expect them to live to be 90 years of age. And I hope that they remember the day that I came to their school and predicted that that would happen for them. And that I am always conscious of this fact, that all of you here, wherever I go, whatever I say, that I represent you, that I represent my family. I particularly think of all my nephews and my brother. My brother, I had to call him this morning to make sure this was strict. Where is he? Is he here tonight?
Yes.
Yeah, right here. So Joe Beth was at the function. So my brother gets up at the function and says, when I was small, my mother told me that Audley, which is what they call me, is smarter than me, and so he should follow whatever I do whatever I say. And then the previous incarnation of that, he said the monks at the school, we went to school in St. Augustine's, used to always say to him, look here, man, why aren't you like your brother? So I called him up this morning, just in case there was any doubt. I said, now look at you. I heard that, right? But let me tell you, I never thought of you as any less smart than me or better than you, right? All I know is we're different. And he said, no, I was just saying that so they could have a little laugh. And I said, but I want you to know we're different. And I told the children that each of them are different.
Yes.
Is a lot. Each is different. And everybody brings their own strengths to the table. I told my aides tonight that when we were little boys, I always felt safer when he was around because he could fight. Nobody would mess with me as long as he's around. And he's born 15 months after I was. So, it's a good team. And there's a picture of us on Easter Sunday dressed in our white suits because when you're little boys at that close age, they dress you like your twins. And, my sister Colin is here tonight as well. She was a baby. You were 3 months old when you went to New York with us. Flew up on Pan American Airways, 4.5 hours, bouncing up in the clouds, then took the train to West Palm Beach. It was a good ride. I don't think she remembers a thing about it. But thank you all. But what I was telling them is that since reputation is everything, I'm conscious of the fact that if I fail, you fail. And if I do something to make the country ashamed of me, then you are also ashamed. And I want to avoid that at all costs, particularly in the waning years, to go to God with a good reputation. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, all of you who are here tonight, my seniors. Good to see you. Remember, Thanksgiving is coming up, and we've already set that down. And my colleagues, thank you everybody could come. Is Kevin still here? Where's Kevin? We can sing something. I'm not quite sure whether he's used to this, but this is a genius on the piano. Keep telling him. This is a gift of spouse to the community. So I'm interrupting the program. So they said, okay, I know.